Chosen one. There is a particular kind of person who confuses everyone around them, including themselves. They are not failing. They are not lazy. They are not ungrateful for what they have built. And yet when no one is watching, when the calendar clears for just a breath of quiet, something in them returns to the same question. Is this actually what I came here to do? Not because the job is bad, not because the chapter was wasted, but because something inside them has always known, quietly, persistently, without any dramatic announcement, that the job was never the final thing. It was the corridor. And corridors are not meant to be lived in permanently. God has said something about your work life that most people will never sit still long enough to receive. He said, the position you have held, the title, the role, the years of showing up, was preparation, formation, a sacred training ground for something that no job description in the world could contain or define. You did not arrive here tonight by wandering. Something with full knowledge of your season, your readiness, and your next chapter brought this word to you with precision. And what God is placing in the position of everything you have known as work, it does not have a job title, but it will carry a weight of meaning that will make everything before it finally makes sense. Stay. What follows was designed for this moment in your life. Everything I am about to share with you tonight is completely free. But if at any point your spirit tells you there is something more you need, you will find it in the description and the pinned comment below, only if you feel led. Before we go further, I want to ask you one thing. Stay with this message until the very end, because by the time we close tonight, you will have received 5 specific signs that reveal exactly where you are in this transition, a teaching from the life of a young man who spent years in a season that looked nothing like his destiny before God, revealed what that season was actually building in him. A word from ancient Hebrew that will permanently change the way you understand what calling means at its root, and a clear picture of 3 dimensions of what God is replacing your job with. That is what is waiting at the end. It is worth staying for. There is a feeling that does not have a comfortable name in most conversations. It is not burnout exactly, though it sometimes wears that face. It is not failure. It is not even dissatisfaction in the ordinary sense. It is the specific, quiet exhaustion of someone who has been good at something, faithful at something, and has gently wondered whether being good at it means it was ever meant to be their destination. You have done the right things. You showed up, you performed, and maybe even advanced, and something in you never fully settled, not because the job was wrong, but because something in you always sensed that this was scaffolding, not the building. Scaffolding. Scaffolding is necessary. Any builder will tell you that. You cannot construct something significant without it. It does the invisible work of holding the structure while the real building happens from the inside. But scaffolding is not what you live inside of permanently. It is not the destination. It is the support system for the destination. And I want you to understand this before we go any further. Your restlessness is not ingratitude. Your questions are not weakness. The feeling that something larger is waiting is not arrogance. It is the voice of your design speaking. God put something in you that a job title was never going to contain. There are 5 signs that appear in people who are standing at exactly this threshold, the threshold between the job chapter and what God is replacing it with. I want to walk you through all 5 of them, because when you recognize yourself in even 3 of these, something in you is going to stop asking whether you are confused and start understanding that you are simply in transition. The first sign is what I want to call the Sunday shift. It does not arrive Monday morning. It arrives Sunday evening, usually around the time the light outside starts to change, when the weight of the next day settles in before it has even begun. And it is not about the alarm or the commute or anything external. It is something quieter. A low, persistent protest from a part of you that registers before your conscious mind can name it, that where you are heading tomorrow is not where you belong long term. This is not anxiety. This is your design, communicating a misalignment before your reasoning has caught up to it. Your spirit knows, and it is telling you. The second sign is a changed tolerance. Things that once did not bother you, certain environments, certain conversations, the particular kind of noise that fills certain workplaces, they have become harder to sit inside of. You can still function, but it costs more than it used to. And you have wondered whether something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. You are not becoming difficult. You are becoming differentiated. When you outgrow a container, the container does not become the problem. The growth is real, and the discomfort is evidence of it. The third sign is creative restlessness, and this is the one most people completely misread. It is that feeling of wanting to build something, create something, bring something into existence without knowing what. You feel it in the quiet hours, in the space between tasks, in the moments when nothing is demanding your attention. It is not boredom. It is assignment knocking at the door of your life. And the fact that you cannot yet see what is on the other side of that door does not mean the knocking is not real. Restlessness is not a problem to solve. It is a signal to follow. The fourth sign is timing coincidences that are moving in a very specific direction. The right conversation appears at the wrong time. A connection forms in the least expected place. Something you read, something someone says, something that surfaces without explanation, and it lands with a weight that the surface of it cannot account for. And it is not pointing toward where you currently are. It is pointing toward where you are going. Coincidences do not announce themselves loudly. They arrive in ordinary clothing. But if you have been noticing that certain things keep arriving and they all seem to point in a direction that has nothing to do with your current role, pay attention. That is not random. The fifth sign is a knowing that arrives before the logic does. Not a feeling, exactly. A knowing. You are in a meeting, or at your desk, or in the middle of a completely ordinary moment, and something in you simply registers, without drama, without noise, just a quiet and unmistakable certainty. I am in the wrong chapter. Your spirit arrived at that answer before your mind had the information to justify it. That is not malfunction. That is clarity, arriving in the order. God sends it. Spirit first, understanding second, chosen one. If you recognized yourself in 3 or more of those signs, I want you to do one simple thing right now. Nothing external. Just in the space of your own mind. Give yourself permission to say, what I have been feeling is real. Just that. You do not have to decide anything tonight. You do not have to move anything. Just let the recognition stand. I want to pause here for a moment. Not to build toward the next thing. Just to acknowledge something directly. You have been carrying this awareness for a while. The quiet knowing that something is off, the weight of a chapter that feels like it should have already turned. And you have kept showing up anyway, kept performing, kept holding everything together, while that question lived in the back of your mind. That takes a particular kind of strength. Before we go any further, I want to honor it. Take one breath here, slowly. Not to release anything or receive anything, just to mark this moment. You came here tonight carrying something real. What follows is going to give it a name. There is a pattern that repeats in the life of every person who has ever walked into something truly great. Before the calling, there was the career. Before the throne, there was the field. Picture a hillside outside Bethlehem. The sun is going down. A young man is alone with animals and stars, and the kind of vast, open silence that only settles when no one is watching. He has no title. He has no audience. He has a job, an anonymous role, in a season that looks absolutely nothing like the thing he was created for. His name was David, and watching him in that field, you would have had no way of knowing he would one day hold together an entire nation. But here is what the field was building while no one was watching. It was building patience in obscurity, the capacity to be faithful when there is no applause, to do the work without recognition, to show up for a role that feels undersized for the assignment you actually carry. David learned in that field what no palace could have ever taught him, that the most foundational character qualities are only formed in the seasons where nothing looks like it is working. The field was also building courage in private. Before David ever stood in front of Goliath, he faced a lion alone and a bear alone, in a place where no one would have known whether he ran or whether he stood. He stood, and that invisible courage was what made the public moment possible. What was built in the unseen season was what showed up in the visible one. And the field was building something even more essential: the interior life, the capacity to sit with God in silence without manufacturing noise to fill it. That kind of communion only grows in quiet seasons. And it is what makes every visible season sustainable when it arrives. David did not come to the throne with credentials, he came with character. And the character was not built in the palace. Every bit of it was built in the field. Your job has been your field. The title, the role, the years of showing up in a season that looked nothing like your destiny, none of it was wasted. It was the architecture of what is coming. It was the scaffolding doing its necessary, invisible, essential work. And the scaffold is still completing its work right now. Do not tear it down before the building is ready. Premature removal of scaffolding collapses what it was designed to support. But there is a way to read where you are in the formation. 3 questions. You do not need to move or stop anything. Just let them land in your mind and notice what comes back naturally. First, am I still learning here, or am I just enduring? There is a real difference between difficulty that is forming something and difficulty that has simply become familiar. When you are still being stretched in ways that surprise you, the work is not done. When the honest answer is endurance without growth, that is a signal worth receiving. Second, am I growing in this environment, or is the environment growing in spite of me? There are seasons where you are the one being poured into, and seasons where you have become the person who keeps the system running. If you feel like the environment has stopped investing in your development and you have simply become the person who maintains it, that matters. Third, and most directly, does this still feel like preparation, or does it feel like a sentence? Preparation has a forward energy even when it is hard. A sentence feels circular. The same ceiling, the same conversation, the same rotation in a slightly new format. These questions do not tell you when to move. That is God's timing to determine, and it cannot be forced without consequence. But they tell you where you are in the formation. And right now, the most important thing is to read that accurately. Before I take you into exactly what God is replacing your job with, I want to mention something briefly. What we have been discussing tonight, this transition from a job chapter into a calling, requires a particular kind of clarity. And neuroscientists have a specific name for the brain state where that clarity actually lives. They call it the gamma state. It is the frequency associated with breakthrough insight and the kind of knowing that arrives suddenly and feels like it was always there, just waiting to surface. There is something called the Genius Song that works directly with this, a tool developed by a neuroscientist who spent 3 decades studying how to restore the brain to that state. I will come back to it in more depth a little later. If you want to explore it before then, the information is in the description and the pinned comment below. For now, let us stay with what matters most. What is God replacing your job with? I am going to answer that with actual shape, actual direction, and the answer has 3 dimensions. Each one is larger than the last. Most messages about calling and purpose stop short of giving you this. They tell you that you were made for more than your current chapter and leave you in the same place you started, just with more hope and less structure. That is not what we are doing tonight. What comes next is the actual architecture of what God is building in the place of the job chapter. And after that, a word from ancient Hebrew that is going to permanently change the way you hear the word calling. Stay. The deepest part of this word is just beginning. God is not replacing your job with another job. He is not moving you from one desk to a slightly better desk, or from one industry to a more fulfilling one. That would be horizontal movement. What God does is vertical. The first dimension of what He is replacing your job with is purpose. And I want to be specific about what I mean by that, because the word has been used so many times that it has almost lost its shape. Purpose is not a feeling, it is a function. It is the specific reason you were assembled the way you were, with the particular combination of experiences, wounds, gifts, and perspectives that make you irreplaceable in a work the world has been waiting for. Your job was preparation for that function. It gave you raw material, the experience of sitting in rooms where decisions are made and understanding from the inside how those decisions actually happen. The discipline of showing up when you did not feel it. The ability to produce under pressure without losing what is happening inside you. These are not just resume entries. These are formation deposits, and they belong to the next chapter, not the one where they were collected. For those entering this season of purpose emerging, here is what to know. The shift will feel disorienting before it feels right. The new chapter will feel too large at first, and the temptation will be to shrink back into the container that felt safe. Do not. The size of what you are stepping into is not a mistake. It is the accurate size of what has been building inside you all along. One thing you must not do is wait until you can see the entire staircase before you take the first step. The first step is the only one that needs to be visible. And here is the truth that holds all of this. A calling does not need permission from your industry to exist. It only needs permission from the one who designed it. And that permission was issued before you were born. The second dimension is provision. This is the one most people find hardest to trust, because everything they have been taught says that provision comes from employment. What I am telling you is that provision follows alignment, not employment. Alignment. We saw it in David's story. The field provided before the palace ever appeared, not extravagantly, but sufficiently. Everything he needed to survive the season and be formed by it was present while he was in it. And when the next chapter arrived, the provision expanded to match the assignment. For those in this transition, resources will begin to arrive in ways that do not follow the expected logic. A door opens that you did not knock on. A connection forms that no strategy produced. An opportunity surfaces without the usual hustle, and you will not know whether to trust it because it does not look like the provision you are used to. Trust it. What you must not do is try to force provision before the alignment is clear. You are being invited into a different relationship with resources, one where your assignment is the address, and provision is sent to that address. Let the address become clear before you try to calculate the delivery. The third dimension, and this is the one that tends to surprise people most, is relationships. God is reorganizing who is around you, quietly, systematically. People who belong to the chapter that is closing will naturally move toward the edges of your life. Conversations that once felt easy will begin to feel effortful. Environments that once felt like home will start to feel like they belong to someone you used to be. This is not failure. This is not conflict. This is divine reorganization. What you must not do is chase what is fading. When someone or something begins to pull away in this season, the instinct is to hold on, to explain, to make it work. Your hands need to be open. You cannot receive new things with closed hands. And here is what to trust. The people who belong to your next chapter already exist. Some of them have already appeared in your life, and you have noticed something about them without quite understanding why. They speak a language you have been waiting to speak. They see what you see and thought they were alone in seeing it. That is not coincidence. Their assignment and yours were designed to intersect. The circle is being assembled by the same force that assembled the calling. Now I want to take you somewhere deeper, because everything we have been discussing orbits a single truth that I have not yet named. And when I name it, the word calling will never sound the same to you again. There is a word in the original Hebrew, the ancient language of the oldest scripture. The word is kara. In the sacred text, God uses it from the very beginning. He called the light. He called the darkness. He called the dry land. He called the deep waters. Most people hear that and think, he named things. He organized them. He labeled the world into categories. But kara goes deeper than naming. At its root, kara is a creative act. When God calls something, when he speaks its name, he is simultaneously bringing into existence the version of that thing that is capable of being what he is calling it to be. The naming and the making are the same act. The call is the creation. This is what changes everything about how you hear the word calling. When God calls you, when he places your name on an assignment, he is not inviting an existing version of you to rise to an occasion. He is creating the version of you that can walk in it. The formation is not the delay before the calling. The formation is the calling, doing its creative work inside of you right now. You are not waiting to become ready. You are being made ready in the very act of being called. Every quiet year in the field was kara. Every season that looked like delay was God speaking you into a deeper shape. I want to say what I hear the Father speaking over you in this moment. He is saying, the position you have held was not a mistake. I placed you there with the same intentionality that placed David in the field outside Bethlehem. Every room that felt too small was a room I was using. Every year that felt like it was standing still was a year I was going deeper into you, not further from you. I have not been absent from your work life. I have been present in it, building what the public season will require, and the scaffold is coming down now. Not because the work failed, because the building is ready, because you are ready. What I am replacing it with was designed for you before the industry you worked in ever existed. I want to give you 60 seconds right now, just 60 seconds. You do not need to move. Just in the space of your own mind, release your job title for a moment. Let it fall away quietly. Loosen your grip on the description, the category, the role. Just let it rest. And in the space that opens up, in the quiet where the title used to live, listen for one word. Not a job title, not a career category. Something that describes what you carry, not what you do for money. A function, a nature. Whatever comes, hold that space. Take one slow breath. Whatever word formed in that silence, even if it felt small, even if it surprised you, even if you are not sure you heard correctly, that was not random. That was kara, happening in real time. God calling you into the next shape of yourself. Before we move forward, I want to share something briefly. There was a woman who had spent more than a decade in a senior management role that anyone on the outside would have called successful, respected title, comfortable income, a team that trusted her deeply. And she walked away from it. Not in conflict, not in crisis, but because something in her could no longer give the role what it required. What was being built inside her had outgrown the container. For 18 months, she did not have language for what she was doing. The only thing she could say was, I know this is not it. She held that knowing in the dark, without a plan, without applause, without certainty about what was coming. And then what was being built began to show itself. Not in the way she had imagined, not in the same industry, not with the same tools, not on any timeline she had planned, but with a weight of meaning that made everything before it feel like exactly what it always was: preparation. She said afterward, I proved myself in silence before I promoted myself in purpose. That path is not hers alone. Here is what almost always stands between the chosen one and the open door. It is not the enemy. It is not the economy. It is the need to know the next step before you are willing to release the current one. There are 3 ways this shows up. The first is financial, the internal calculation that never stops running. I cannot let go until I have a backup, until the numbers make sense, until I can see how this works on paper. And the calculation never finishes because you are using the math of the old chapter to evaluate the economy of the new one. Those two economies do not operate by the same rules. The second is identity. After years of being known by what you do, the question of who you are without the role can feel genuinely disorienting. Not because the answer is absent, but because it lives on the other side of a threshold you have not yet crossed. The third is approval. The fear of what the people who have known you in this role will think when you begin to move differently, when the version of you they recognize starts to change. All three of these are real, and none of them is a reason to stay. Chosen one, you are allowed to not have the full plan yet. You are allowed to outgrow what once fit you perfectly. You are allowed to let go of a title that was never your name. You are allowed to trust the space between the job and the calling. And you do not owe anyone an explanation for becoming who you were always intended to be. Before I show you the specific tool that makes everything we have covered tonight receivable at the frequency where it can actually change how you move, because I am going to show you, and it is coming right now, there is one thing you need to understand about why so many people hear truth like this and still cannot quite land in it. Once you understand this, what I am about to share will make complete sense, and it will change how you operate from this point forward. Let me name plainly what you have received tonight before we go one step further. You came here carrying a restlessness that did not have a name. Tonight it has one. Not failure, not ingratitude, but the recognizable sign of a season completing and a new one being authorized. You learned that your job was scaffolding, and you learned three specific dimensions of what God is replacing it with. Purpose, in the form of a function no resume can contain, provision that follows, alignment rather than title, and a relational circle being assembled for your next chapter right now. And you received something from ancient Hebrew that changed the word calling at its root. You are not waiting to become who you need to be. You are being made into that person in the very act of being called. You have the material. What I want to offer you now is something that helps your brain receive it, not just in thought, but at the frequency where it actually moves. In a research facility in Cambridge, a team of neuroscientists spent years mapping exactly what happens inside the brain at the precise moment when something unclear becomes unmistakably clear. What they found was consistent across thousands of subjects. Every genuine breakthrough in understanding, every moment of deep clarity, was accompanied by the same specific brainwave state. Scientists call it gamma. Gamma is not the state most people walk around in. Most people operate in what is called beta, the alert, task-managing, reactive frequency that is essential for daily function, but is not where deeper knowing lives. And when you are carrying the weight of job security, financial uncertainty, or the pressure of a transition you cannot yet see the shape of, the brain locks into beta and stays there. Beta is survival mode. In survival mode, the signal-to-noise ratio is too high for the frequency of divine calling to come through clearly. Dr. Robert Lake is a neuroscientist who spent 34 years studying the gamma state and how to restore it. He worked with research findings from MIT, Princeton, and several other leading institutions. And what he discovered is something that reframes everything about human potential. Every child is born with natural gamma capacity. It is the default state of the unformed mind, open and receiving without filtering, processing at a depth that most adults have lost access to. It begins to diminish around age 7 as the structures of formal education gradually train the brain toward compliance and away from creative receptivity. He calls this the decline effect. The decline effect is not permanent. That is what his research ultimately showed. And the specific method he identified for restoring gamma capacity led to the development of the Genius Song. The Genius Song is a 7-minute audio track that uses brain entrainment technology to guide your brain back into the gamma state. You put on headphones, settle into stillness, and listen. No meditation practice required, no mantra, no specific technique. The audio does the calibration work directly. And those who use it consistently report that the clarity they were reaching for, The sense of knowing they could feel but could not fully access begins to surface. More than 18,000 people have used the Genius song so far. Less than 4% have ever requested a refund. I want you to sit with that second number, because in any category of tools designed to shift how people function, less than 4% returning means more than 96% found it worth keeping long after the guarantee window closed. That is not a marketing statement. That is behavior. The Genius song is normally priced at $49. For those receiving this specific message, it is available for $39. That price exists nowhere else. Not in a search, not on any marketplace, not through any other path. Only through the description and the pinned comment below. And it comes with 4 bonuses included at no extra cost. An audio track calibrated specifically for children before the decline effect has settled in deeply, because some of the people holding this message have a generation they are responsible for. A book that is the original source material behind one of the most widely known films about the principles of abundance, containing the practical depth the film distilled but never fully delivered. A 22-minute guided visualization across 4 areas of life: finances, relationships, health, and inner peace. And a companion audio designed to deepen and extend the primary session work. The combined value of those 4 bonuses is $80. All 4 are included. There is also a complete money-back guarantee with no restrictions on how many times you have listened before requesting it. I want to be honest with you about something. The Genius song is not a replacement for the discernment and the process of transition we have been walking through tonight. It is a calibration tool. It lowers the interference between the frequency of fear and the frequency of what you are being called into. What you do with the clarity that surfaces is still yours to walk out. One last thing before I move on. If you search for this independently, you will find versions online that are not the authentic track. I can only stand behind the source in the description and the pinned comment below. Please use only that link. If what I shared resonates with you, and only if it does, the information is waiting for you below. Before I close this word over your life, let me say one thing plainly. You are not confused. You are in transition. And that difference matters more than it may seem right now. Confusion has no direction. Transition is movement with a purpose you cannot yet see the end of. You came tonight carrying something real. You are leaving with the shape of what it means. Chosen one, you did not come this far to settle for a job. You came to walk in an assignment. You were not made to be defined by an employer. You were made to be sent by a creator. You are not someone who is between jobs. You are someone who is between seasons. What was preparing you is completing. What was containing you is being removed. And what stands beneath the scaffold, what has been built inside you through every field season, every invisible year, every moment of showing up when no one was watching, that is you. That is the pioneer who walks into uncharted territory first, so others have a path to follow. That is the builder who creates things that outlast the season they were constructed in. That is the voice who speaks what thousands of people feel but have not found words for. That is the cycle breaker who ends in their generation what was carried too long in the ones before. What you carry cannot be revoked by a layoff. It cannot be capped by a salary structure. It cannot be contained by any industry that currently exists. I want to share what I hear the Father saying over you as this word closes. He is saying, I know what it cost you to remain faithful in the field. I know the specific kind of loneliness that comes from carrying an assignment in a season where it cannot yet be seen. I know the weight of the gap between who you know you are and what the world is currently asking of you. But I prepared the ground you are walking toward with the same care that placed you in the ground you are standing on now. What I am replacing it with is not a consolation. It is the original plan, the one that was written before your name was given, And you have been walking toward it every single year, including the years that looked like detours, including the years that looked like delay, including the years you would have never chosen for yourself. What some have called destiny's embrace is not something you will have to pursue. It will recognize you, because you were made for it. The scaffold is coming down. Take one breath here, not to do anything with it, just to mark this moment as real. If you are ready to step forward into what God is replacing your job with, you do not need to say anything aloud. Just let one word form quietly inside of you. Yes, in the place where you carry your deepest knowing. That yes is enough, and it is already heard. If something in this message found you tonight, I want to ask you one thing before you go. During those 60 seconds we spent together, a word may have arrived, a function, a nature, something that describes what you carry rather than what you do. For money, if a word came, put it in the comments below. Just that one word. It belongs to your next chapter. And there is something that matters about placing it somewhere visible. If this message shifted something in you tonight, the like below is your way of saying, I received this. And if you want to stay connected as more words are prepared for this particular season, remain here. Let the next message find you. If someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who has been quietly going through a transition they cannot explain to the people around them, someone who has been faithful in their own field and wondering when the season finally turns, send this to them. Your share may be the exact word that helps them understand that what they are carrying is not punishment. It is preparation. Go in peace. And go knowing that what God is replacing it with is already in motion.